Royal Caribbean makes a big announcement about their newest ship, Odyssey of the Seas. Carnival Cruise Line has released the remaining restart dates for all of the ships waiting to resume operations out of the US, and will detail at least one. I provide an update on Norwegian cruise lines and their color status. It seems like they might be making their way off the naughty list with the CDC. And speaking of the CDC, one cruise line out of the US is starting to encourage children 5 to 11 to be fully vaccinated in order to cruise on their line. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule, but I definitely see it moving in that direction. We'll tell you who coming up. All this coming up on Midships. Hey, welcome to the Midships YouTube channel. I'm your Captain Corey. Thank you so much for stopping by the channel today. Well, we're officially 2 days away from my next cruise aboard the Odyssey of the Seas by Royal Caribbean. And because of this, I want to provide a quick PSA reminder to everyone with cruises coming up. If you have a cruise going out of the US, you are required to test negative for COVID 2 days before embarkation if you are a vaccinated passenger. I would highly recommend using these test kits from Emed or Optum. These are the best way to test pre-embarkation for your cruise. You get your results while you're waiting on the phone with the testing provider. I will leave links in the description below this video to where you can purchase test kits for your next cruise. It doesn't matter if you buy from Emed or from the Optum store. All the kits will work for all the major cruise lines out of the United States. While you're down there checking out the links, you might also want to take a look at some of the Amazon affiliate links listed in my description below the video. Hidden behind those links is some fantastic cruise swag that will make your next cruise vacation a breeze. Stuff that you didn't know you couldn't live without, like this passport holder with a COVID card insert. They're available in like 5 or 7 colors. And even if you click the affiliate link and don't buy anything, it does support the channel just a little bit. Now let's hop into today's cruise news with a restart update coming out of Carnival Cruise Lines. From cruiseindustrynews.com, here are the dates for the remainder of the Carnival fleet to restart. Carnival Cruise Line confirmed that all of its 22 US-based cruise ships will be sailing by March with guests on board. While 17 ships are set to be in service by the end of this year, the 5 additional vessels are returning by March 15th. Here are the confirmed restart dates for the rest of the Carnival fleet. And of note, tomorrow, the Carnival Legend will be restarting out of Baltimore, Maryland, followed by the Carnival Radiance next month, December 13th, out of Long Beach, California. And also December 13th of next month, Carnival Conquest will begin from her home port in Miami. And looking ahead into next year, on January 13th, the Carnival Sunshine restarts from Charleston, followed by my very first cruise I ever took was Carnival Liberty. She'll restart on February 11th out of Port Canaveral, Florida. I'm really thinking about booking on board the Liberty for that first sailing. Following the Liberty will be Carnival Sensation out of Mobile, Alabama, March 5th. A few days later, on March 7th, the Carnival Ecstasy will restart operations from Jacksonville, Florida. And the last but not least ship to resume operations for the Carnival Cruise Line in the US will be Carnival Paradise out of Tampa, Florida on March 12th of 2022. So out of those 8 ships, I'm sure somebody out there in the Midships audience has to say that is their favorite cruise ship they've ever been on. If that's you, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. While you're down there, why don't you do me a favor and smash the thumbs up button? It tells the YouTube algorithms that we should be pushing this type of cruise content out to more cruisers just like yourself. Now let's keep digging into the Carnival Cruise restart with a look at what's going down in Mobile, Alabama. There was a little bit of drama going on between the cruise line and the local governance. It seems like maybe we're finally hashing things out. Let's learn a little bit more from the Alabama News Network. Carnival to resume cruises from Mobile on March 5th by Alabama News Network. Nearly 2 years after the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, Carnival Cruise Line is planning to restart operations from Mobile next year. Carnival plans to have all of its ships in operation by March, with the Carnival Sensation sailing out of Mobile, Alabama on March the 5th. Mobile's Mayor Sandy Stimson said the city is thrilled by the news. He said cruising brings in $6 million in annual gross revenues to the city from wharfage and parking fees alone. Some of those funds are used to offset the existing debt on the Alabama Cruise Terminal, which is not expected to be paid off until 2030. The Sensation will replace the Carnival Fantasy, which had previously serviced the area from 2016 up until the shutdown in 2020. So I think it's important to look at articles like this that tells you just how big of an impact the cruise ships have on a local community. $6 million a year is nothing to sniff at, and I can tell you, if this terminal is not going to be paid off for another almost decade, they are itching in Mobile, Alabama to get cruise ships to return. Now, the other day, I was seen on this very channel complaining about Norwegian Cruise Line having way too many ships on the CDC's color status chart in the orange status, which means the CDC is starting to look at intervening on board the ships. Now, it's been a few days, and I want to show you an update to see maybe if Norwegian Cruise Lines has finally turned the game around. And like usual, I'm going to use the cruise ship COVID status tracker provided by Cruzely.com. That's put out every day by Tanner Calise. I think it's just a lot easier to look at than the one that's provided on the CDC's actual website. So here you go. We can see Norwegian Cruise Line. This was all filled with orange and yellow the last time we looked at this, and you can see they are finally almost completely in the green status. So that tells me Norwegian Cruise Lines is starting to look and probably pivoting the way they do some of their protocols on board. I'm not sure if they've announced any changes per se, but I bet you Frank Del Rio and company has put in place something to get them off the CDC's naughty list. And speaking about being on the CDC's naughty list, it's time to start pointing a finger and questioning what Royal Caribbean's up to. Because if you take a look right now, they have a fair amount of vessels in the orange status. The ship I'll be sailing on in 2 days, it's really close to tiptoeing into the orange status, the Odyssey of the Seas. So we'll be keeping an eye on Royal Caribbean over the next 7 to 14 days to see if they can get things turned around, kind of like Norwegian Cruise Line has. And speaking of the CDC and things going on there, we have to talk about one cruise line starting to look at vaccinations for children aged 5 to 11. In an article from Cruzely.com by Tanner Calise, Carnival encourages vaccines for children 5-11, will require shot for Camp Ocean admission. One of the largest questions surrounding the return of cruising is how will cruise lines handle sailing with children on board? While vaccines have been available for adults for months, kids under 12 have been unable to receive the dose until just a couple days ago. That has put cruise lines in a difficult situation whereby they want to encourage as many passengers as possible to sail with the shot, but also consider families with kids who weren't yet eligible for the vaccine. Some lines like Norwegian Cruise Lines have taken a stance that everyone has to be fully vaccinated to board their ships. Obviously, this stance excludes families with smaller children from the sailing. Other lines have allowed exceptions for unvaccinated children to sail on board. For example, Carnival, which counts families as a major portion of its passengers, requires those over 12 years old to have the shot. Then it allows a small number of passengers without the shot if they are granted an exemption by the cruise line. Parents of children under 12 can request this exemption, allowing some younger kids to cruise unvaccinated. The question became what would happen when the vaccine was approved for kids under 12 years old. Now we have the answer, at least for now. A recent change to Carnival's website says the cruise line will continue to allow exemptions, but does encourage families to consider vaccination if they want to be sure they can sail on board Carnival. And here is the statement from Carnival Cruise Lines. Exemptions for children and adults are not guaranteed and are capacity controlled based on the total number of vaccinated guests projected to be on board. The number of exemptions we are able to grant is far fewer than the requests we are receiving. While the decision to vaccinate children is obviously personal, if you are a family with children aged 5 to 11 and want to guarantee your ability to sail together, we encourage you to consider your vaccination options. To meet vaccinated cruise standards, the CDC says a ship needs to sail with at least 95% of passengers having received the jab. Carnival has followed this guideline, but has still allowed a small portion of passenger exemptions if they are ineligible due to age or medical condition that prohibits them from taking the shot. The exemption process makes family cruising more difficult. Families have to first book their cruise and then hope they receive one of the exemptions from Carnival in order to sail. If accommodations can't be made, then it means they either have to cancel and receive a refund or move their sailing to a different date. Exemptions are issued 14 days prior to the sailing. So obviously with the new rules coming out for children aged 5 to 11, we're probably going to see cruise lines really start to push the shots for the younger and younger passengers I wouldn't be surprised if sooner or later you're going to start to see one or two major cruise lines start to say, hey, it's time to get your kids vaccinated if you want to cruise, and we're going to start looking at only exemptions for those who are medically unable to take them. My personal opinion, but I bet this is on the horizon. Now let's talk about a ship I'll be sailing on in less than 48 hours time. That's the Odyssey of the Seas. When I'm on board the ship, there's going to be some pomp and circumstance in the Nassau area, and this has to do with the new Godmother for the ship. Let's learn more from cruisehive.com. By Emrys Thacker, Royal Caribbean announces Godmother for the Odyssey of the Seas. Aaron Brown will christen the new Odyssey of the Seas during a naming ceremony in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. With the naming ceremony for Royal Caribbean's newest ship just days away, the cruise line has announced Aaron Brown to be the ship's newest Godmother. The Bahamas' first para-athlete to ever compete in the Paralympic Game qualifiers, Brown will accept the honor of christening the ship during an event on November 13th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we have a quote from Michael Bailey, President and CEO of Royal Caribbean International. From the moment we heard Erin's story, how her courage and determination inspired others and led to a more inclusive consciousness about succeeding with disabilities, we were moved and knew she was a natural choice for Godmother of our newest ship. And here is our first look at Aaron Brown. Brown, a 41-year-old mother of two, will become the first Bahamian to christen a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. Brown was diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer called osteosarcoma during her time as a collegiate track and field athlete. Cancer came after Brown had a fall that resulted in her breaking a leg. In a quote from Brown, she said, "A sudden change like the one I experienced is just an opportunity to rebrand yourself." And that's not the last big news for Odyssey of the Seas, because just a few days from now, she'll be in Nassau, Bahamas, and the Odyssey of the Seas will be welcoming on board the Prime Minister of the entire country. That's right, folks. I'll be on board. We'll try and catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister of the Bahamas touring the fantastic Odyssey of the Seas. If you made it this far into today's episode, why haven't you subscribed to the channel? While you're down there subscribing, why don't you hit a thumbs up if you would love to push this episode out to other cruisers like yourself. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel today, and until tomorrow, we'll see you on the Midships.
La 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 la.